Aloha and hello out there, everybody. What's going on? This is Miho with Too Close to Call Sports, joined as always by my co-host Pags, and this podcast you're listening to is the We're Going Streaking podcast. We're talking NCAA football where, Pags, it's championship weekend, baby. Let's go.
Oh, one of the best weekends of the year. Got some good games on the docket. I can't wait to sit down and watch. And they give you a nice little treat of a Pac-12 championship on Friday, so you don't have to binge watch it all day on Saturday. Let's freaking get it. It would be better if they gave us Maction tonight on Wednesday.
That's right. What the hell? Now we're complaining. I want Maction.
Give me Maction, people.
Oh, goodness gracious. But let's look at the college football rankings, and then by the time we get to the top, obviously we'll have discussed all the title games. What do we think's going to happen? What do you want to happen? Where are you at? We're going to talk through it all here. We're going to discuss the most likely scenarios, the least likely scenarios, and everything in between. From 25 to 20, Oklahoma State, Navy, Virginia, USC, Appalachian State, USC. Are they keeping the coach, Pags?
USC, no, I think he's gone. I think Franklin's going to end up there.
No, he's not. What are you talking about? Dude, I think they're going to keep him around one more time. Big Clay out there at USC. And dude, how about Appalachian State? 11-1 this year. Another good year from them, going from 1AA up to D1 now and still running shit.
Yeah, and if Cincinnati can go and beat Memphis, App State hammers whoever they play in the Sun Belt Championship, you could possibly see App State jumping in there and being the New Year's Six highest-ranked non-Big Five conference team. So they're playing for some style points there for sure.
That's going to be an interesting look because in the AP and the coaches poll, App State won ahead of Cincinnati, but the College Football Committee says, no, you guys are idiots. Clearly, Cincinnati's one ahead of App State because both those teams you mentioned, Cincinnati, Boise State, Minnesota, Memphis, Iowa, 16 through 20, Cincinnati, Memphis. Ooh, that'd be a tough coin flip there if Cincinnati wins that one.
It's going to be interesting. And even with Boise State there, too, you said all those teams have had crazy years, and unfortunately only one of them is going to get in to play in one of the big New Year's Six bowls.
Yeah, that's tough.
I think the College Football Playoff Committee tends to favor the American Conference ever since with UCF and all those years of their dominance there. I think they're going to lean towards the American, and I think Memphis is going to beat Cincinnati 2 weeks in a row, so that probably won't even have a significance there.
Yeah, and then Minnesota down 10 spots all the way to 18. A tough fall for the Golden Gophers.
They had their year of destiny, and they squandered it with losses to Iowa and Wisconsin. You go, you beat Penn State. There it is. It's right in front of you, and you freaking dumped those two games. Not only dumped, they got hammered by Wisconsin. Wisconsin bringing it back in the last couple weeks of the season after their loss to Ohio State.
Yeah, and they're going to run back into Ohio State here, so that should be fun for them and the Badgers.
Oh,
and
God.
Talk more about that later here, because this is where things get a little bit interesting and where locally a lot of conversations, I'm sure, were had over the Delaware Valley over the last 24 hours. But no problem here, 13, 14, 15, Oregon, Michigan, Notre Dame. The real question is 10 Penn State, 11 Auburn, 12 Alabama?
Yeah.
You're telling me Penn State's beating Alabama if those two teams are playing each other, or Penn State's favored in that matchup?
I don't think Penn State's beating Auburn. I don't think Penn State's beating Oregon, if I'm being totally honest here. Penn State's losses to at Minnesota and then at Ohio State are obviously their two biggest things that are keeping them above, but Bama's losses are to LSU and Auburn. I think it's just the way that Auburn loss came about this past week that dropped them so far, and not having Tua, I think that's why they've fallen so far.
Yeah, let's touch on that, Mr. Official, briefly here for a minute, because that review before the end of the half, putting a second on, allowing them to change to the kicking team, snapping it right away. What's the deal here, man? That would literally never, ever, ever be able to happen, ever.
Ever.
What's the rule here?
I feel like you never put time back on the clock when it's like that. it's a bad break for Alabama right there because Auburn able to get points before the half. I can't defend all the Zebras.
I got you. But rolling up here, 9 through 5, Florida, Wisconsin, Baylor, Oklahoma, Utah. Everybody knows your top 4. Ohio State, LSU, Clemson, Georgia, unchanged. So what do you think? Obviously, the top 4 are correct out of your mind right now?
Yeah, right now, I think for sure. I feel like no one even talks about Florida football. They've just hung around right there, gave LSU a tough game, lost to Georgia in a close game, and Florida just never getting the props I feel like they deserve this year. They just sit there right around 8 or 9, and they just stay there the whole entire year. It's pretty crazy. I always forget about Florida. When we were going through before we jumped on this podcast, you were going through the SEC teams, and I go, I think you missed Florida in that grouping there. You're like, everyone just keeps forgetting about them.
Yeah, they started out 6 in a row and then dumped one to LSU, won, and then lost to Georgia. And at that point, you fall back to like 15 or so and, pretty much become forgotten about. And especially with Florida State not being an elite team or a quality win the last weekend of the year, they weren't able to kind of throw their name back into the hat nationally, right, so to speak. But to your point, man, obviously breaking down this weekend, we got number 1 Ohio State versus number 8 Wisconsin, and then you got number 2 LSU versus number 4 Georgia. We're gonna have some movement yet here, and we could still have some chaos.
I don't think Wisconsin's going to beat Ohio State. I think Ohio State's a shoo-in. LSU, if they would drop to Georgia, they're definitely still in. Just based off of their resume, they played one of the hardest schedules in football, and Dave, it would be wild if Georgia didn't slip up that game to South Carolina in overtime. If they're sitting there 12-0, I think this thing is set. Those 2 SEC teams are getting in, and they're playing for seeding, and if Clemson wins and Ohio State wins, they're in. I just think it's wild that one little loss to South Carolina makes Georgia have to beat LSU to even be into the playoffs.
And sometimes, again, it gets back to being so elementary when you look at it, because you look at the rankings. Oh, teams 1, 2, and 3, 0 losses. Teams 4, 5, 6, and 7, 1 loss. So if you don't lose, you're ranked the highest. Like, it doesn't matter who you beat. I guess
unless you're UCF,
right? Like, that's the difference between LSU, Clemson, and Ohio State is who you beat, but you're still in the playoffs. So, like, don't play anybody like Clemson didn't play anybody all year. Oh, you got to be the 3 seed? So what? Who cares? Just make it.
Is LSU the only undefeated team that can lose that would still get into the playoff? Like, if Wisconsin beats Ohio State, does Ohio State still get in?
If LSU wins and Clemson wins, like my short answer is yes. But obviously there could be scenarios where they do not. But in my eyes, I think a 1-loss Ohio State would still deserve to be the 4 seed instead of a 1-loss Utah Pac-12 champion, dude. Ohio State they may be the best team in the last 20 years, man.
What about Wisconsin?
Wisconsin's at 8 right now, so I'd put them at 5 or 6.
They lost Illinois.
Right,
they lost Illinois.
So they have 2 losses. So they would go to 5 or 6, and Ohio State would probably go to 4.
That would be shitty for Wisconsin fans. That 1 loss to Illinois on the last-second field goal.
Well, that's where you're talking is for them. They're still not out of it. I mean, they beat Ohio State. LSU beats Georgia. Virginia beats Clemson. You had 2 openings and maybe Ohio State.
Oregon beats Utah.
So then, Oregon beats Utah. Baylor, Oklahoma, that winner would be in if that's the case. And then you're staring at the Wisconsin-Ohio State debate. They split who's better, and Florida's sitting there at 9 going, just take us. We're better than them both.
But then Florida's debate, then Georgia jumps in and is like, hey, motherfuckers, we beat Florida.
Right.
But it's like, but Florida's like, you lost South Carolina, though. We lost LSU and you guys.
Right, and Clemson's going, and we're 12-1.
8 teams, for the love of God.
Yeah, exactly right, man. So it's just, obviously, I think Ohio State beats Wisconsin. I think LSU beats Georgia. Clemson wins. If Georgia wins, those are still your four in my eyes. You'd go Ohio State 1, Georgia 2, Clemson 3, or I guess Ohio State 1, Clemson 2, Georgia 3, LSU 4. I just don't want the rematch, LSU-Georgia, somehow happening in the first round. Like, I don't want Georgia to win and go to the 1 seed and play the 4 seed LSU. Like, come on, let's not do this. Let's be a little bit smarter than this, please.
Georgia's not going to have their best receiver to start the game against LSU because he punched somebody at the Georgia Tech game. So Georgia's already going to be down some, and they have DeAndre Swift's a little banged up. So I think if I had to choose what was going to happen, I would say LSU 1, Ohio State 2, Clemson 3, and then I think the winner of the Baylor-Oklahoma game gets in.
I think Utah's in if they win.
Interesting.
Oklahoma's been there the past couple of years. They haven't looked great. Baylor, I don't know. We'll see. I just think they'd throw Utah in, man.
It would definitely be a different team. So who would be the comp? The Big 12 would be the one without a bid this
year.
Big
12 would be pissed with a one-loss champion.
Because last year was Big 10 was out. So, yeah, that'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah, and the Pac-12 hasn't been around for a couple of years.
Yeah, since Washington got hammered by Bama a couple of years ago. So,
and unfortunately,
we'll see what happens, man.
Utah would get hammered by Ohio State or LSU in that scenario.
Do you agree that LSU jumps Ohio State with a win against Georgia?
I think they do, but I'm not sure, man. I don't know if the committee – it depends on if Ohio State absolutely destroys Wisconsin.
Okay, so if Ohio State destroys Wisconsin, but LSU dismantles Georgia.
I think they stay with Ohio State because it'd be I think it'd be 3 weeks in a row where they'd say 10 Penn State, 13 Michigan, 8 Wisconsin, all beaten by double digits. We can't move them down.
Right. The committee does some weird things, though. So
that's a tough stretch.
To see what happens.
That's a tough and impressive stretch.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
To be 10, 13, and 8, you know what I mean? And LSU has a cupcake in between there type of thing. LSU hurt themselves by playing, who was it, A&M on the last weekend? Who the hell did they even play? It was A&M, 50-7.
Oh, they can't handle. That's their fucking conference.
Well, that's what I'm. No, but it's your rivalry weekend. Like, it doesn't have to be a conference weekend because Florida plays Florida State, so they set it up that way. But that's where just beating A&M, it did them no good. Like, okay, cool. Ohio State hammers a Michigan team who came in running pretty hot, and it's like, yeah, this is just no. They're amazing. But let me ask you this here. As we're talking, I went over to the sports book here at the Sugar House to look at some lines for this weekend. And what's it tell you about the state of college football that the closest line for conference title weekend is 6.5? And that's Oregon plus 6.5 at Utah. Baylor's plus 8.5. Let's see. Georgia's
I might take Baylor there.
Georgia's plus 7.5. Virginia's plus 28. And Wisconsin's plus 16. I mean, every game's a touchdown game here. It's like, where's the 2-point game, the 1-point game? Like, come on, man. Is it really that top heavy in college?
It sure seems like it with all these undefeated teams up there. I'm shocked that Georgia, because Georgia essentially has a home game this weekend in Atlanta playing LSU. I'm shocked that they're that much of an underdog. I do think LSU ultimately ends up winning that game, but I don't know. 8.5 seems like a lot.
That one's 7.5, but either way,
7.5.
Money line's plus 220 for the Bulldogs.
Sounds like we could win some money if we take some upsets this weekend.
If you can get in on it, man, for sure. But that's what I was looking at going, oh, what are the spreads? It's like, wow, everything's a touchdown? We're getting, no Alabama-Auburn 2.5 or, one of those, man.
Right.
Like Wisconsin plus 16, Virginia plus 28. Like, they're going to hammer those teams, dude.
Yeah, they are. See, that's why the committee throws Wisconsin in as the 8th seed right there. They know they're going to drop below Alabama and Auburn, but when the game starts, it's like, hey, 1 versus 8. tune into this game.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Then you watch it, and then Ohio State beats them by 100. And you're like, oh, yep, okay. Go back to ranked 15th.
Which game would you rather see in the first round, LSU Clemson or Ohio State Clemson?
Oh, dude, those are both really good games.
The other one hammers Utah, so who you taking in those games?
Personally, rooting for LSU because of Joe Brady. I would like Ohio State to face them first because I think that's tough for an LSU team that hasn't been there yet to face a team that has been there every year and has faced Alabama every single year. I would rather see Ohio State go against them, but that's just the fandom in me. I think LSU Clemson would be a better game, just a lot of points. So it's all going to be good once we get to the playoffs there. The 2-3 games generally the closer one, and then you get to the national championship, and you just hope you don't get a game like Clemson-Bama last year where Clemson just blows the doors off Bama.
What a wild
game. Does Nick Saban need to be fired?
Yeah, absolutely. He's underperforming. This is unacceptable. He's out of the top 10. Are you shitting me?
Dude, somebody came out on the radio and they were on the Philly radio and they were pulling up tweets from Alabama fans and they're talking about how they have digressed all of these past 2 years and how they need to fire Nick Saban. Talk about a hard life right there for people. Oh my God. Could you even imagine that? That's crazy.
Oh, it is crazy. That's insane. But yeah, certainly could see some chaos yet this championship weekend, but we'll be tuning in, watching the games. And then, what is it, next Tuesday they announce it, or is it Sunday right afterwards?
Sunday's the announcement. Selection Sunday.
Let's
go. See
go.
where your Pitt Panthers are going to play.
That's it, and those Michigan Wolverines, wherever the hell they end up, man. It's a little bit of a disappointing year for both of them, but status quo, it seems.
Hey, we got to tease it. Coming near future, our annual bowl game pick'em.
Yes, that's right. Maybe we'll
fans up for it.
Yeah, we'll get a pool like we did for March Madness going potentially. Somehow we'll get everybody's email. We'll get everybody's email or something. We could throw them on the Google Docs. Get to work here. Do a little bit of a contest. Pick all the bowl games, the confidence points. Could be fun.
It's tough remembering how many confidence points because there are so many freaking bowl games. It's like, where do I throw these points at?
79 eligible teams this year for 78 eligible slots. So we'll see who will get the shaft.
Team? My guess is the Charlotte Niners.
Oh, God.
I'm just throwing it out there.
That's
throwing it out there.
I love it. But
Charlotte Niners getting left out.
Oh, man. But in the meantime, everybody out there, hit us up on the social media. Follow us, like us, subscribe, rate, review, do all of the above. Too Close to Call Sports. The number 2 both times. We're out there spreading the word. Share us with your friends as we springboard into wintertime sports. Getting a little bit more involved in hockey and 76ers action. Those two teams are tearing it up at home, man. The Wells Fargo Center is lit this year.
I can't wait to dive into that stuff. This football season has taken years off my life.
Absolutely. Let's get to the sports we're good at, please.
Yeah, no doubt.
Oh, goodness.
But hey, it's fun. We'll catch you guys next podcast with some pick'ems coming up. So we'll catch you guys later.
Peace.